What's going on, everyone? Chris from Pickdawgz.com here with the breakdown. We're going to be looking at 7 college football games for Saturday, September 20th, 2025, Week 4's action. If you're looking for my best bets on the board, the games that I absolutely love, including my college football platinum play, you can check those out over at Pickdawgz.com by clicking the Experts tab at the top of the page. It's a great time to jump on board during college football season because the 3-day pass and even the 7-day passes are usually less than buying each of Saturday's daily packages individually. Normally go high volume on these college football Saturdays. And, said if you hop on a long-term pass, not only do you get all my access to all my plays for college football Saturday, you'll get a couple bonus days in there where you'll get my full NFL package as well as MLB and any WNBA plays I may put out. So make sure that you jump on board, use the promo code PICK at checkout and get 15% off your purchase. But like I said, we're here to talk about a 7-game slate for this week's breakdown for college football action in Week 4. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right down to it. You guys know the drill. Are you ready? I'm ready. Let's get into it. Our first game comes to us at 12:45 p.m. Eastern. It is Tennessee taking on UAB. And, after the way that Tennessee lost to Georgia last week, I would have thought, a lot of times, you lose a heartbreaker like that. Who wants to play UAB and what feels like a little bit of a sandwich spot for Tennessee with a road game against an improved Mississippi State team on deck? But if you look historically, Josh Heupel usually, for how many times he's lost to Georgia in a row, and this has been the closest that it's been in a decade, he usually, takes out some frustration the following week. Over the last 4 seasons, Heupel beat UTEP 56-0, put 48 on Vandy, 66 on Missouri, and 60 on South Alabama. Usually takes out some frustration on teams the week after. And the problem for UAB is the team that gave up 42 to FCS Alabama State. They gave up 28 to an Akron team that had been shut out through their first 2 games, going into Week 3. And I just think that this is a spot where Tennessee names their number. UAB's offense can put up some points, so I don't necessarily love laying 39. I think that would be the way I would go if I were to pick a side in this game. But I think the better play here is just take the team total over for Tennessee in this one. Next, at 3:30 Eastern, we headed this matchup between Notre Dame and Purdue. And I looked at this matchup as well, and I thought, my first thought was, well, Purdue, even though it is a bit of a new look Purdue team, I'm sure they still want to shake off the stench of that 66-7 blowout loss to Notre Dame from last season. And credit to Barry Odom. I think he's going to do a good job turning this Purdue team around over the next couple of seasons. The problem for me in this game is that this is an identical situation for me for what we saw from Notre Dame last year. Last year, Notre Dame lost that head-scratching game against Northern Illinois, lost that game, and then came out against Purdue the next game, and like I said, won that game 66-7. And I think that I'm not saying it's 66-7 in this game, but I think you get a smash spot from Notre Dame here because Notre Dame can ill afford another slip up. I understand, they played tough games against Texas A&M and Miami to start the year, but this is a Notre Dame team that, can't afford a third loss. They're really going to make a concerted effort at a college football playoff spot. No 3-loss team has made the college football playoffs, even in the expanded format. So for me in this one, I just think that, while I do, like I said, expect Purdue to show some fight, I think this is just one of those games where Notre Dame comes out with a bit of a statement here and really lays the hammer on Purdue in this game, maybe 42-14, something like that. So I'm going to lay the points with Notre Dame in this one. Now we head to another matchup at 3:30 p.m. Eastern between Ole Miss and Tulane. And this is an interesting one because Ole Miss, they had that great, comeback and they had an exciting win over Arkansas in their last matchup. But I still have my concerns with this Ole Miss team that really just has a hard time stopping anybody right now in Tulane. They came out, they got the win over Duke last time out. They beat a pretty good South Alabama team. Jake Retzlaff has been able to, make lemonade out of the situation he's been given with the Lemons at Tulane after being forced out of BYU. And I just think this is a bit of a hefty line in what I do expect to be a little bit of a track meet. I think the Tulane's going to be able to make this game respectable. I think they're going to be able to match what Ole Miss brings to the table. Now it looks like Simmons is not going to be able to go or contribute is the word that they used for Ole Miss. But Trinidad Chambliss, he looked really solid. 21 of 29, 353 yards, and a touchdown in that win over Arkansas. But again, the Ole Miss defense is still problematic and gave up 35 points in that game. So I'm expecting an exciting one here. I still think Ole Miss wins, but I could see a 38-31 kind of game where Tulane gives them everything they can handle. So I'm going to go with Tulane here, plus the 11.5 in this one. Now we head to this matchup at 3:30 Eastern between Nebraska and Michigan. Michigan laying a 1.5 on the road here. And I still have my concerns with Bryce Underwood. And I understand, Michigan is still a very, they're a quality team that just beat up on Central Michigan. We're able to get some, frustration out and maybe get some cohesion within this lineup. But now you look at Michigan now having to go back into conference play. And, we saw them really struggle in their first road game against Oklahoma. Now, Nebraska still a team that I have some concerns about defensively. And if you look at Nebraska's schedule, they haven't really faced a tough, test yet. The toughest test they faced was in week 1 against Cincinnati, and they almost lost that game outright and followed it up with wins over Akron and Houston Christian. But I still am high on this Nebraska team. I'm still high on Dylan Raiola. Now that he's got his feet back underneath him and has had some, opportunities to get some reps and, just sort of fine tune some things. I'm not reading too much into Nebraska's numbers right now, but I still think that, you got Bryce Underwood making his first conference road start here. It's not necessarily a great spot, in my opinion. I just think this is a Nebraska team that is going to relish in the opportunity to kick things off at home and try to get us, a bit of a statement win to say that, hey, we're here for the Big Ten this season. We're here to make some moves. And I think Nebraska wins this game, but I'll take the 1.5, and I'll take Nebraska on the money line in this one. Now we go to this matchup between Florida State and Kent State from Doak Campbell. And, the thing with Florida State in this matchup, obviously a heavy favorite because Kent State, for me, is still one of the worst programs in FBS. And, they were able to keep it close against Buffalo last week. How I remember having Buffalo as a premium and thinking, what was I doing laying 22 points with Buffalo? But to me, I thought it made sense because I thought that Kent State is still going to be one of the worst teams in the country. And this is still a Kent State team that gave up 62 points to Texas Tech a couple of weeks ago. Now, you do have Tommy Castellanos, after that win over Alabama came out, and it was the next game was that 77-3 blowout of Texas A&M Commerce, or East Texas A&M, I should say. And the most important thing is for me that Florida State's had a bye week, and now they get to come in. They don't really have the toughest conference opener against Virginia next week, so I think this is a spot where FAU is going to want to just run it up, get some confidence going into conference play. And I think that Kent State, I think, is just in the wrong place, the wrong time. I think Florida State could easily put up a 50 or 60 burger here. So I'm going to go with Florida State. I'm going to take their team total over. I could see them winning this game, and I could also see them winning something like 48-3 or something like that too. So depending on what you get the team total at, you could lay the points if you feel comfortable laying 45. But I just think I'd rather much isolate Florida State's team total over here. Maybe even take the team total under for Kent State. There's a bunch of ways that you can play this, but for me, it's Florida State's team total over in this one. Now we had some primetime action. Battle between the Miami Hurricanes and the Florida Gators at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And it was a game I've talked about a lot this week. The Florida Gators were my loser of the week when we did sort of a weekend recap on the morning show because I did not like what I saw from DJ Lagway in that game. LSU was giving Florida every chance to sneak in the back door and cover that point spread and even win that game in a couple of spots. But DJ Lagway comes out, throws like he's throwing blindfolded, and it just was, it was a mess. I mean, yeah, you have a great offensive line for Lagway, but he's making mistakes. Like he's just throwing it into triple coverage, throwing it to guys that are wearing the other color uniforms, and it's just not a good look. This is a Miami team that is going to stack the box. They can stop the run. They're going to force DJ Lagway to beat him with his arm, which is, technically what you should do if you're Florida because the weakness of this Miami team and this Miami defense is their secondary. But I still think Lagway's going to make a ton of mistakes here. I am so checked out on the Florida Gators. I'm not blaming Billy Napier because I think the play calling was fine. And at a certain point, yeah, the sword falls on the coach, but you got to trust your players to go out there and make plays. And Lagway is just not going to be able to do it for me here. I've been impressed with what Miami's brought to the table in their first couple games, and I think that they absolutely run it up here on Florida. I think Florida's in some trouble. So I'm going to go with Miami here. I'm going to lay the 7.5 points. Our final game on Saturday's card takes us to Waco, where the Baylor Bears take on the Arizona State Sun Devils. And, for me in this game, I'm expecting points here. I just think this is going to be a bit of a track meet, as Baylor's, main step-up game was this season. I mean, they played Samford and they played Auburn. And, we've seen them play SMU as well. And that game saw 93 points. The game where I really thought that Baylor was going to show up was against Auburn in week 1, and they lost that game 38-24. But again, the defense gave up 38 points in that game. Arizona State finally woke up against Texas State after sort of flatlining against Mississippi State in their first road game of the season. But I think that that's going to kind of be Baylor's MO this season, just playing in a lot of high-scoring, fast-paced games. The defense has been problematic for Baylor, and they're 114th against the run this season. The problem here is that you still have an Arizona State team that, even without Cam Scatterbo, has still taken on we're going to run the football at you. And that's, like I said, a great way to beat this Baylor team is to try to run it down their throats. Baylor, like I said, 114th in stopping the run. Arizona State 21st in running the football so far this season, and top 50 in rushing attempts per game, top 20 in yards per carry. So I think there's gonna be points scored plenty in this game. I could see something even getting into the 70s in this game. I'm gonna go with the over 59.5, and what I could see end up being like a 34-30 or maybe even a 38-35 kind of game to round things out. That's it. That's your college football breakdown for Saturday, September 20th, 2025. Again, week 4 college football. If you're looking for my best bets on the board, the games that I love, head to pickdawgz.com. Click the experts tab at the top of the page. Like I said, we're going high volume on Saturday. You can find my college football platinum play. A lot of times those 3-day and 7-day long-term passes are cheaper than buying each of the daily packages individually, and it gets you a couple extra days worth of plays where you're going to get to my NFL action as well on Sunday. You can pair me up with any of the other great handicappers at the website. We'll make you some money that way. But remember to use the promo code PICK at checkout and get 15% off your purchase. While you're at Pick Dawgz, check out our betting tools. They are 100% free. They're the best betting tools in the business, and tools that you want to make sure that you have in your back pocket when you're making your best bets for the day's action. Thanks for watching. See you guys soon.